Hello, good afternoon. I am here doing my first ever live stream. Maybe I did do one a few years ago, but welcome to anyone who's watching this live or watching the replay. My nerves are high because this is my first time. But I'm mostly just really excited to be here to talk to you about spiritual sexual healing, which is one of the most important things to me. I want to talk to you about what it is. I want to share with you why I care about it so much. Because if you're somebody who resonates with the work, I want you to know that I'm here and that I would love to work with you. So my name is Emily Davies. I am the founder of a brand called Radiance Temple. And Radiance Temple is an online community with a coaching program that supports women who are on a journey of spiritual, sexual healing and integration. It is a sacred space where women come to heal their sexual energy and step into their sexual power. If you are interested in Radiance Temple, I would love for you to check out my website at radiancetemple.com, get the free download I'm offering, and join my email list so you can learn about what I do. I'm also fully open to messages and comments, so if you're curious about learning more, don't be shy about messaging. I encourage you to come out of hiding and reach out, and then we can see if Radiance Temple is the right place for you to step into your spiritual sexual healing journey. So my story starts with the use of Eastern philosophy, Zen Buddhism, yoga, meditation, trauma healing, sacred sexuality, and women's mysteries, which have helped me move from a woman who loved the idea of feminine magnetism and in some ways was embodying feminine magnetism, but also felt very isolated from myself in the way of taking up space in the room. So really seeking out my needs and my wants. So moving from that place to feeling much more integrated with my magnetism, my sexual wellness, my sensuality, and being a woman. And it's brought me so much more joy, so much more balance in my life between my head, my heart, and my body, feeling more lit up in my body and feeling more authentically expressed. Okay, so spiritual sexual healing is different in some ways than what you might think of that Marvin Gaye song, Sexual Healing. And he's basically talking about the healing power of having sex and connecting intimately, which is lovely and a part of spiritual sexual healing. But it's not the full story. The work that I do with women in Radiance Temple and the message that I'm really here to talk about is about a woman's connection to her own sexual energy, how a woman feels about herself inside of her own body, and about her sexual expression and the expression of her femininity, and what that looks like in the world. And spiritual healing is a journey of connection. It's a journey of feeling fully integrated, all pieces and parts of oneself are working in cohesion, that the inner you and the outer you are working together. So the journey of spiritual sexual healing is a journey that is very unique to each person. It's it's a journey of connecting into your heart and then opening your sexual energy through your body, but also through your heart. It's a journey of transcending the fears and the limiting beliefs and the feelings of shame or guilt or regret, the inhibitions that hold you back from feeling like you're fully yourself and that it's okay to be visible. It's okay to be seen. And in fact, true intimacy and true love requires that we are seen, which is one of the reasons why this work is so important. And it's also one of the reasons why I say maybe it is time to come out of hiding. So spiritual sexual healing is really about a woman getting to know herself on a very deep level and learning to feel at ease with or in harmony with the flow of her sexual, sensual, and creative energy through her body and through her life. So women who come to Radiance Temple for spiritual sexual healing are ready to answer the call. They've been probably working on themselves in every level, working on the body, staying well, working on the mind, mental clarity, studying, focus and attention, working on the heart, living through the heart. But sexual energy is that area that's a blind spot. So I find that women who have already been on a spiritual journey for quite some time can still stay very disconnected from their sexual energy and from their sexual self because there is so much baggage. There's so much baggage in society that we take on as women that it keeps us blocked and it keeps us cut off from. So when a woman decides to work on this part of herself, she is calling forward a certain amount of courage. I'm honoring her being so courageous. And what I always want women to know that if you're thinking about spiritual sexual healing, if the idea resonates with you, but you're still feeling reserved about it, that's okay because your nervous system is going to try to keep you in that same cycle that you've been in. And I think that there can be a lot of fears, like the fears that need to be addressed in order to step into your sexual power are real. They are real, but they can be transformed. So whether it's, if something happened to you and you're afraid of being visible, you're afraid of even connecting with your sexual energy because you might have to think about those things that happened to you again, or you might be triggered into reliving memories. Or if you are afraid of connecting with your sexual energy because you can feel that you need to transform and you're not sure if the life that you have will survive, if the relationship that you have will survive the transformation, if the career that you have will survive the transformation, the way that you put yourself out in the world will survive the transformation. There's a lot of fear that can come with the pending feeling of transformation. And we're also conditioned to not embrace life to be pleasurable. We're also very stuck in life has to be hard. Pleasure isn't possible, feeling unworthy of receiving pleasure. So there are a lot of stories. But the way to work through any of them, the way to transcend the story for any of the cases above, is to go directly into the body and the nervous system first and tap directly into the energy and start to build the mind-body connection with the literal spaces of the body, like the pelvic floor, the pelvic bowl, the sexual organs, the womb, the clitoris, the vulva, the vagina, the breasts, and start to tap in to the actual physicality of your being and breathe and start to build that mind-body connection, and then you can kind of work through the rest that comes up. And you can go super slow, and you can be super careful and super tender. And I want to validate, like, if you're feeling the call, but you're feeling also the fear, then that's a really exciting moment for you to start the practice of connecting into your body. Okay, so that's a little bit about spiritual sexual healing. It's also a little bit about my modalities. It wasn't really what I planned on talking about on this video, but this is my first live stream, so I'm like just also trying to work through my nerves and let the channel flow. So thank you so much for being here. I am grateful. But what I really, really wanted to share is on this video is why I care so much about this. I'm really grateful that I haven't had personally like a lot of trauma in this area. But I feel very, very sensitive. Even saying that out loud feels very difficult for me because there are so many people that I love so much who have had things happen to them. And the reason I care so much about spiritual sexual healing is because I think that as humans, we have an opportunity to transform like the energy of sex, which can be really animalistic. We can be really afraid of it. It can be really triggering. It can be really intense. We have the ability to sort of contain and harness that energy into something really beautiful. But right now, where we are in the world is we are in so much shadow. There is so much sexual shadow in the world. There is so much pain and pain cycles, and as a result, younger generations are not wanting to have sex. They're not wanting to be in relationships. They're afraid. And I think that when we address this part, and I know that when we address this part, just like we would address any carnal desires, carnal human behaviors, there's like the basic impulsive, animalistic like expression of sexual energy, but there's also like the more of the enlightened version of that, which is where we have a connection with our sexual energy where it's not controlling us, but we're also not afraid of it controlling us because we have a sense of agency and we feel sovereign. So there's a place where we're not overly suppressed and we're also not acting totally like animalistic and carnal. And I think that we're going to flow between both. And every person has to know their inner beast in order to tame it. I do believe that acting with control is important. But I believe that doesn't happen through suppression or avoiding the topic. It happens by looking at it and getting to know it and learning to love it. And that's a part of yourself, learning to love yourself. Because what happens is if we totally ignore our impulses, or we are ashamed of our desire, or we avoid the topic altogether, then it goes into the shadow. And that's why shadow sexuality is such a prominent issue in our world, with pedophilia, porn addiction, and human trafficking, violence, all of those things that are a part of the shadow. And I really do believe that, a lot of women aren't the ones out there doing these things. But I think that the control that the patriarchy has had over women has made us feel afraid of what it looks like of being a sexually empowered woman. So we have a lot of commercialized versions of femininity and women's empowerment and women's expression, and a lot of commercialized, meaning sex sells, beautiful women sell. But I would venture to say that, there are certain versions of femininity, dressed up femininity, that aren't actually expressions of the feminine. And so, anyway, I don't want to get off topic, but because where I was going is that, yes, women are not necessarily, we're not the ones necessarily doing the harmful things. But when we step into our power and we show the world what it's like to have women who aren't afraid of their wild, instinctual womb wisdom, then the world will start to change. We're coming out of a time of control. We're coming out of a time of oppression and control. And it's okay to be more visible now. It's not a perfect world, and it's not going to be a perfect transition from where we've been, which is afraid and oppressed, to the place of being fully expressed and fully integrated. But sisterhoods are building all over the world to support women, and that is what will help us become more visible and feel more empowered and more confident. I can't not say this. This is not what I meant to have in the topic of this video either, but I can't not say this. So I've been following the divine breadcrumbs through history lately. It started out with reading When God Was a Woman, which is a book from the 70s by Merlin Stone. I read some of a book called The Poisoning of Eros, which was written by a former Christian preacher. I have been reading books on Venus and Aphrodite and Mary Magdalene, and it's become very crystal clear to me that before the church was around, women were the spiritual authority. It was temples of the goddess, because that belief came out of the fact that women birth the babies. We are the creator. And for thousands, tens of thousands, there's evidence of tens of thousands of years of that being the case before the current era. And I don't know if that's better than what we have today. I mean, I'm sure there were some things, but I know for women that here's what I think about. I think about, what do we need to remember as women? How did we feel about ourselves when women were in charge of the wealth, when women controlled the resources, when women ran the governments, when the supreme being was a woman, was the feminine, and sexuality was embraced. It was an integral part of that. How did women feel about themselves at that time? And if you're watching this, I invite you to think about that for yourself. So what I wanted to really share is why do I care so much? Why do I care so much about sexual energy and spiritual sexual healing? I think that we have a real job ahead of us as human beings to heal this shadow, so our children don't continue to live in this world with a very messed up perception of what sexuality is, so that we can embrace it, we can experience deeper love, more meaningful relationships, more meaningful connections. We will tend to the earth and the resources and our bodies, because these are all representations of how we care for the feminine. I think that we have real work to get out of shadow and bring real, authentic, beautiful sexual energy into the bodies, hearts, and minds of all people. So people aren't afraid of this energy, that they know their pleasure, that they know how to communicate, how to experience love. And this will stop the cycle of hiding and shame that we're in right now, because nobody wants to talk about it. And if you can't talk about it, how are you going to raise sexually empowered children who can talk about it? So anyway, I don't know if that's your story, but maybe you do want to talk about it. I don't know, but let me know if you do. And I think that we can do it. I think that we can do it, but I think that it's going to take each person looking at themselves. And I know for women, it's going to take learning to be visible. And that doesn't mean you have to flaunt and be like an exhibitionist and be out there on the forefront with your, flaunting your sexual stories everywhere. I fully respect that this is personal and private, and I think that we can have both. And in a community setting, in a sisterhood, this is where women are really trying to transcend competition with one another, transcend comparison with one another, and transcend judgment. Because our judgments of others are a reflection of our judgments of ourselves. In a sisterhood, in a sacred space, that is what women are showing up to do. They're showing up for their accountability and their power. And in a sisterhood, we watch each woman step into her power in her own time and in her own way and on her own path. And it will look like her own unique expression of it. And since sexual energy is associated with shame and guilt, like the demon of these energy centers are shame and guilt and fear. Shame, guilt, and fear will keep these parts of us hidden. And I am here to tell you that you can stay as personal and private as you want on your own journey. And I will help you keep looking at your sexual energy, the true nature of your sexual energy, long enough that you can reclaim the pleasure and you can reclaim it as your own. And inside of Radiance Temple, that's what we do. We work on the body, mind, and spirit of sexual energy. And if you're curious about it, make a comment on this video or send me a message, and I can send you some information about it. So I feel complete with my live today. I did a little rambling. I want to thank you for being here and watching. I think I have 1 or 2 people on here. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful. Again, the purpose of this talk is what is spiritual sexual healing, why I care about it so much, and in order for you to hear about Radiance Temple, and I would love to work with you if spiritual sexual healing resonates with you. So comment on this video, send me a message, and I'll reach out to you and we can talk about what that would look like. See you next time.